yes, I got initiated, and now I'm in the process. What are you doing? Well, nothing different, but I'm initiated. That's not the idea. That we should always be making progress. If I'm not initiated, I should be looking gradually toward initiation. If I'm initiated, I should be aspiring. How do I make further progress in my spiritual life? We shouldn't be standing still. Process means, practically speaking, the very word process means something's happening. It's not just that we plod along as usual. And if we don't feel like we're making progress, then we can ask ourselves, where am I missing something? Vyas had to ask the same question to Narada later, that I've written all the books and still I'm feeling something's not right. So what's missing here? We can ask ourselves if we're not in growing, if we're not progressing, where's the mistake? Am I offending Vaishnavas? Am I not properly following the regulative principles? Am I neglecting? Am I negligent in my chanting? So trying to avoid offenses and positively to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Is that okay?
Thank you. Panchatattva Prabhu has a question.
Panchatattva has a question. Okay.
It's really more of a comment when talking about experiences of devotees, future devotees interacting with persons who are enthusiastic to tell them about Krishna, but not necessarily following. I'm reminded of a friend, Mahamuni Prabhu, who his first encounters with the subject of Krishna were with Bhakta, you used to call him Bhakta Joe, and they would go off into the Forest Park in St. Louis and climb into Groves Park and do various forms of intoxications of the day, and talk about how everything is Krishna and all this energy is Krishna, these leaves, anyway, like that. But it led Mahamuni to go, or at that time, Mike Whalen, to go to the temple to take up the process. So, although it was a kind of a deviant sort of introduction, it sparked his inquisitiveness. And while Bhakta Joe never really took fully to the process, Mahamuni Prabhu did, and he's done so much nice service.
That was also Prabhupada's experience, that his friend in the Mullock family, I've forgotten his first name. Narendra Mullock encouraged him that you have to meet this sadhu. You should really meet him. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. You should, definitely you should meet him. Come on. So he was prodding Prabhupada to meet Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And when Prabhupada did, then he was impressed that yes, now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement is in the hands of the right person. And Prabhupada went on to spread the teachings that he heard from Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur all over the world. And Narendra Mullock, we don't hear that he really went forward. But that was his contribution, that he apparently introduced Srila Prabhupada to his Guru Maharaj. Yes.
In reference to Dr. Joe Kunkel, he always stayed connected with devotees through the rest of his life. He passed away some years ago. And interestingly, Mahamuni came all the way from the West Coast to be with him in St. Louis in his final hours and made it just in time. And so he got, Dr. Joe got all kinds of mercy at the end of his life, including a somewhat clandestine initiation by another devotee. So he got a lot of mercy Some of it was like right at the tail end of things,
Mm.
but that's how things turned out.
Yes, Dharmas.
Yeah,
How wonderful.
yeah, it was really
Pancharatna Prabhu also, he was this Bhakta Neil the typist of Bhagavad Gita fame, who'd been a student and was doing like some work study, some participant observer activity at 26 Second Avenue, went back to Antioch and introduced Pancharatna Prabhu to the teachings of Krishna consciousness. So Neil dropped to the wayside, but Pancharatna Prabhu is still, so enthusiastically engaged. Okay, there's a couple of other questions here. Let me see if I can get them in focus. Praveen asks, if the Brahmavadis accept the form of the Lord as transcendental, but they meditate on Brahma. I guess that's a question. The Mayavadis say the form of the Lord as Maya, product of material nature. Wouldn't the destination of the Brahmavadis and the Mayavadis be different? The Mayavadis are offenders and hence go to hell. I see a lot made of this distinction between Brahmavadis and Mayavadis. And I don't see Prabhupada really pushing this distinction. The Brahmavadis accept the form of the Lord as transcendental, but they meditate on Brahma. I don't know if that's true. Brahmavadis, they're interested in Brahma, the absolute. Whether they see the Lord's form as transcendental or not, hard to say. I don't really know. I haven't seen that said. Generally, this distinction between Brahmavadis and Mayavadis is, I don't see Prabhupada making that distinction very much. Generally, the Mayavadis, they're interested in Brahma, Aham Brahmasmi, Aham Brahmasmi. But then they think that they're also Brahma, the absolute is Brahma, I'm Brahma. So then they become bewildered. And this Mayavad technically means that it's just a disparaging term, really, that because they say Brahma Satya Jagan Mitta, the absolute is real and the world is false. Jagan Mitta, the world is Maya. So, all right, for you, everything is Maya. The world is Maya. The forms of the demigods are Maya. The forms of the Supreme Lord are Maya. Everything's Maya, except your philosophy, Prabhupada. Everything else is Maya. So then they're disparagingly called Mayavadis because they see with that vision. Yanti Deva Vrata Devan, wouldn't the Brahmavadis go to Brahman at the time of death? Yeah, that's generally what's understood, that those who are worshipping the impersonal Brahma may attain the impersonal Brahma. If they're suitably fixed, they may attain that. But the Vaishnavas think Kaivalyam Narakayate, to attain that impersonal oneness with Brahma is worse than hell, because there's no opportunity for devotional service because, yes, individuality is obstructed. Okay. Then there's a question from Samarpan Prabhu. How to cultivate and sustain the spirit of always trying to make progress in Krishna consciousness, as it may go away or diminish as devotional service practice. relationships, services go on fairly well after going through Kleshagni, and person receives enough respect, etc. Apologies for joining. Okay. Questions. Okay, the question basically, I think, that we're doing okay, but how do we cultivate and sustain real enthusiasm, real determination, enthusiasm, life? So that comes by especially association. By the association of those who are alive, we become alive. By the association of those who are enthusiastic, we become enthusiastic. Sadhana will help us, but sadhana alone will be not as powerful as the association of devotees and performing sadhana in their association. Sadhu Sangha Lavamatra Sadhu Sangha Sarva Siddhi Hoy. Even a moment's association. We don't find that so much that by, of course, there's evidence in Nectar Devotion that just by performing this or that item of sadhana, sometimes one may be very quickly attain all sorts of achievements. But Sarva Shastra, all the Shastras are saying again and again, Sadhu Sangha, Sadhu Sangha, Sadhu Sangha, Sadhu Sangha. Get the association of devotees. Because by that association, therefore Rupa Goswami is also recommending to associate with sadhus. Then we'll make rapid progress. What is that? Shushushaya bhajana vigyan ananyamanya indari shunna hridim ipsita sangalabta. One should be especially eager to get the association of a devotee who's very expert in devotional service and who's free from especially the tendency to criticize others. Indadi Shunna. So the association of advanced devotees will help us so much. Association of devotees generally will help us, and especially if there's very advanced devotees, that will help us. Ekaki amar nahi payo bolo harinama sankirtane. On my own, to chant Hare Krishna will be difficult, but in the association of devotees or under the guidance of the spiritual master, by the mercy of the spiritual master, then we can make rapid progress. That's another answer. Yasya prasada, Bhagavat prasada. You want to get Krishna's mercy? Please the spiritual master. And when the spiritual master is pleased, Krishna will be pleased. Are there other questions?
Maharaj?
Sir?
Maharaj, if I may, related to the rules in order to associate with the different personalities while executing devotional service, we love God, we serve the advanced devotees, we make friendship with our peers, and we give mercy to the innocent, more or less like that. So Maharaj, when I am asking questions to Your Holiness, the mood is different from the mood that I use when I am asking questions to my peers. And the mood also changes when I'm answering questions made by the ones who are innocent or inferior in knowledge in relation to me. So the changing of moods is always happening in accordance with whom I am having the exchange. So my question is it that when I am asking a question to a devotee who is superior to me, is it that it is his moral duty to make me feel how far should I go?
To make you feel how far you should go.
Yes, in terms of quantity of questions, quality of questions, should I be very careful? Because I often hear and read in the scriptures that we should treat advanced devotees very carefully.
Yes. Bandomvi Savadana Mate, the spiritual master should be approached. Savadan, you just like when you in Bengal, if you come to a railway crossing or something, you'll see a sign. Savadan means watch out, caution. We would say the sign would say here, caution. That means that one has to be careful not to be puffed up, to let familiarity breed contempt, to see the spiritual master as an ordinary human being. Navamanyeta karhichit. So very carefully. That's good. Even there's those who are careful like that with all the devotees become quickly advanced. Those who are respectful to the Vaishnavas, Krishna becomes very pleased, always respectful. Otherwise, that tendency is there that I respect the Guru and offend everybody else. Or I respect an advanced Vaishnava, but not the other Vaishnavas. And Prabhupada has that. We read it, I think, in a previous class, that classic letter to Tushta Krishna Maharaj, where Prabhupada bashes that idea really and says that all the devotees are pure devotees, and therefore one should respect and appreciate all of the Vaishnavas, not just the one that we imagine or we think is the person, but that it should extend to all the devotees. Is that okay?
Maharaj, I'm sorry. When you say familiarity breeds contempt, in practical terms, what do you mean? If I become too familiar with an advanced devotee while asking questions, is it what am I risking? Am I risking to be rejected?
Are you doing what to be rejected?
If I become too familiar with a devotee with an advanced devotee from whom I'm trying to receive answers to my questions, is it that I am risking to be rejected by him?
Risking.
If I
It's not just risking to be rejected, but one risks. The real risk is that we can think that these spiritual masters an ordinary human being. That's very destructive to our spiritual progress. And how is that? We see he's eating like everybody else. He's sleeping like everybody else. Sometimes he sleeps more. Sometimes he belches. Sometimes he becomes angry. Sometimes he does. It seems that he's forgotten something. Sometimes he's this. Sometimes he's that. And we start to think that he's like everybody else. And we miss the most essential point, that he's carrying the message of Krishna. I observed that. I was personally afraid to be too close to Srila Prabhupada sometimes, because I would see that he'd have a string of servants, because one after another would fall down. They would start to because they had constant association with Prabhupada, or you could say concentrated association with Srila Prabhupada. And they would fall into that trap of thinking, seeing the spiritual master from a material point of view, which is deadly for devotional service. So I was a little afraid that I don't want to have that service, because I know what kind of person I am. I'm critical, I'm envious. So if I go associate with Prabhupada, then I may start to think about him that way, and then I'll be cooked, I'll be finished. So sort of knowing my own shortcomings, I was a little, what's the word? Afraid of that kind of service, because I saw so many people, and nice devotees, this is what would happen. How to see such normal actions of the spiritual master? Yeah, we have to see. Just Srila Prabhupada asked that question. Prabhupada gives the Rupa Goswami that the Ganga may have dirty things in it. It may have, rubbish and even dead bodies. So many things, but still it's pure. Still it's the Ganga. So how does one see? One has to keep that conception in mind, that this is the water coming from the lotus feet of Krishna. It's always pure, and not be in that way. People accept the Ganga, even though they know so many things may be there. So one has to see the spiritual master similarly. He's always at the lotus feet of Krishna. For those who are interested, there's an exchange between me and Srila Prabhupada on this topic. You can find it in the folio. I guess the key words would be, well, one is Bhakta Samshanat, because Prabhupada explains that verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita, verse about where he uses those words from a verse about Advaita Charja and Chaitanya Charitamrita. So if you look there, but anyway, I really pushed that question. How do we, that sometimes we see the spiritual master seems to make mistakes, seems to be imperfect. And Prabhupada really illuminated the matter. We only have a few minutes left, so I may not tell that story. I'll save it for another day. But Prabhupada said we have to see how this, you said the spiritual master, it's not like a magic show. Hansadutta Prabhu told the story one time how he'd come to 26 Second Avenue, I guess before joining the devotees, and he saw Prabhupada, and Prabhupada looked very impressive. He was leading the kirtan, and he had, sort of long ears like Lord Buddha, and he's obviously absorbed in meditation. And Hansadutta was like, wow, impressed. And then Prabhupada finished the kirtan, and he took out his book and then put on his glasses. And Hansadutta thought, well, wait a second, he's a Swami. Why does he need glasses? So we have our own ideas about what a guru should be, what a Swami should be, what an advanced devotee should be. And therefore we misunderstand. So we should see the spiritual master with our materially calculating minds. Prabhupada said we have to see how he's engaged in the service of Krishna. It's not that we also just become indiscriminate and just like, wow, look at that beard, look at those eyes, and accept any nonsense. But this is the qualification, Prabhupada said, how he's always engaged in the service of Krishna.
Maharaj, if I may, if we read the Bhaktivedanta purports, at least to Bhagavad Gita as it is, there are no doubts related to the qualification of Srila Prabhupada as the Jagat Guru, as the Acharya.
I see one more question that I missed, so let me see if I can catch it. Thank you for that, Vijay Krishna. Regarding Lavamatra Shadhushanga, does this refer only to those who hear and inculcate the principles that the change of consciousness will happen? What about people who happen to meet pure devotees but do not follow their instructions? Will there be a change in them as well? I was just hearing from Purujan Prabhu or someone at the Govardhan retreat that if our consciousness is not suitable, then our progress will be slow. Our progress will be slow. It's not just association by physical proximity, but it's our attitude also, our consciousness. And Prabhupada gives the example of the bug on the body of the king. He's getting the king's intimate association, but he doesn't get the same benefit as the servant of the king. There was something more I had in mind about that. But then, I guess tonight's the night for telling a lot of different stories of things Prabhupada said. I heard Prabhupada say one time that you go on chanting Hare Krishna, and some people you're chanting Harinam Sankirtan, Nagar Sankirtan, and someone is hearing and he thinks, what this nonsense is doing. What this nonsense is doing. But Prabhupada said, but because you're going every day, chanting, and he's hearing, one day the day will come when he'll think, this nonsense is nice, let me be nonsense like this also. So that's the basic principle of our program, that people are, what would you say, they're not following the principles, they're not always hearing with the most submissive and pure-hearted mentality. But because they, somehow or other, they agree to hear, they agree to do some service, so then they can, it's their good fortune, they can make progress and even attain perfection. Lavamatra Shadhushanga Sarvasiddhi. Okay, I'm going to stop here. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Maharaj, for another nectarian evening of just saturated Prabhupada points. So just make the regular announcements. So on Thursdays, which is tomorrow, please join us for the Ishta Goshti session that happened at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on the Ishta Goshti channel of His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj, so that you can find that link on jswami.info. It's Maharaj's website. The current topic is, what are the 4 rules? On Saturday evening, we have, Saturday morning, 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m., we have the last session of the Pathways to Perfection series, Atma Nivedanam. This will be led by His Holiness Sachinandan Swami Maharaj. So you can join on tinyurl.com/bhakticenter. So this is going to be the last one of the 10-part series. So do try to watch that. And if you haven't seen all the previous ones, you can catch them on the YouTube channel, which is tinyurl.com/temple@bc. So all the previous sessions are also available on YouTube, so you can catch up on that. And on our channel here, Tomorrow evening at 8 p.m. we have Vishakapriya Mataji and Dwarkadish Prabhu once again. They're a very dynamic Grihastha couple from Mumbai, and to look forward to hearing from them tomorrow. So be sure to join tomorrow evening after the Ishtagoshti. This will be at 8 p.m. tomorrow, and then on 8 p.m. on Sunday, His Grace Chaturatma Prabhu will be giving a wonderful talk. So please join for that as well. And thank you once again for joining, and thank you very much, Maharaj. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.
Thank you, Madan Gopal Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj Dandvat, Hari Bol.
Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Dandavat Pranam Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Thank you,
Radhe.
Maharaj. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Nice class.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Radhe Radhe Maharaj, Hari Bol.
Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you so
Krishna.
much.
Jai Maharaj. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol.
Sadhunath. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Shri Prabhupada ki jai.
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 Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj ki jai.
Jai.
Bhaktavinda ki jai.